Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter, your host, at Michael Pachter on Twitter. If you are watching this real time when it's brand new, it's because you are helping us out by being either a patron on Patreon, and thank you very much, or by linking your Amazon Prime and your Twitch Prime accounts. Amazon pays us for that, so it costs you nothing. It's part of your Prime benefit. If you can remember to do that, the description on how to do that is in the show description below. And then finally, you could be a YouTube subscriber. That would be great too. You're getting it real time. If you're not subscribing, we understand times are tough. Everybody's got a job and plenty of money, but they don't want to spend it. But you're getting it on YouTube a week later. And again, I insist on that because I don't get paid, as you know. But we do have to pay for production. It costs money to actually put this up. So appreciate your patronage. Wishing all of you a very happy holiday. From Patreon, from OTT Apps. In a recent interview, Phil Spencer from Xbox said Game Pass makes up just 15% of Microsoft's overall content and services revenue. He also said that while he expects overall revenue to grow, Game Pass will still represent only around 15% of revenue. Does that number sound right to you? I thought Xbox's financial model is being built around Game Pass being the dominant source of revenue. Am I wrong, or is Phil fibbing? I think that, first of all, Phil is comparing this to overall Microsoft. Microsoft has, I don't follow Microsoft as a company, but they have at least 200 million people who pay them $100 a year for Office 365. So that's $20 billion. They have another 10 billion or so probably from just general software sales from Microsoft services. Then obviously the Xbox business has software revenue of a few $billion a year. I'd say that the Game Pass piece is probably really literally the $10, not the $15, because $5 is Xbox Live Gold and $10 is Game Pass. So you're talking about $120 per year, $10 a month, times 25 million customers. You're talking about $3 billion a year. That's probably right. You know, the $3 billion is 15% of $20 billion. That's probably right. That's a big number. So, you know, if Phil says that he expects overall revenue to grow, but Game Pass will only still represent 15% of revenue, I'm not sure what else Microsoft is doing to grow its overall revenue, because again, I don't know how they even measure Azure, which is giant. You know, I don't know if there's content and services in there. Azure is a service. As you know, Amazon calls it Amazon Web Services. So I'm really not sure what Phil's talking about. I don't believe that Game Pass will be 15% of Microsoft's overall revenue if Game Pass turns into what Microsoft thinks it's going to turn into. And what I think they expect it to turn into is a service with 200 million subscribers. And, you know, maybe not paying as much. Maybe they can drop the price if they get that kind of level. But, you know, if they have 200 million people paying $120 a year, hope I'm doing this right, that's 24 billion a year. That's a big number. And I think that's their goal. So I was very skeptical when Game Pass first rolled out, because I thought all you've got is, you know, 4 or 5 big Microsoft titles, you know, Halo and Gears and Forza and God knows what, Fable. I mean, I couldn't even tell you what else they have. That come out every 3 or 4 or 5 years, Forza a little, maybe more frequently, and catalog of another 20. You know, you just don't have that many titles. So who's going to pay $180 a year for that? Then they went on their buying binge, you know, and they bought Hellblade, and they bought all the smaller studios, and then they bought Obsidian, who has Outer Worlds and Pentiment, and, you know, started to get, you know, and they obviously had some old stuff like Hexic that was pretty good. Then they bought the Bethesda, and I went, oh my God, they're getting serious. You know, now you're talking about Elder Scrolls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Fallout, at least 3 and 4. I'm not sure if they own the others. And, you know, what, Doom and Quake and Dishonored and, Prey, and there are so many titles. Bethesda's probably got 25 or so. Now you're starting to build a library. And then they signed a deal with EA. All EA catalog that's a year old and older, which adds up to quite a bit of stuff. Now they're doing Activision, and you've got 18 Call of Duties, and gosh, you even got Spider-Man from the PS2. So you've got, when you added the Activision stuff, now you're suddenly getting some catalog. Now it's starting to look real. And interestingly, just like Netflix, as you go from 25 million subscribers to 50, you have twice as much money to build content. So they'll build their own, they'll license more. As you go from 50 to 100, even more, and 100 to 200, even more. So I think Phil isn't in the business of projecting how big Game Pass is going to be, and I certainly think he doesn't want to be on record as saying I think he gets to 200 million subscribers, but I do. I think he gets 200 million subscribers. Now, it's not going to get there if the Activision deal gets blocked, and I've said that in a prior episode that I don't think the Activision deal gets blocked. I think they're going to continue to build this. I think Microsoft is looking at the games business as life after the console. And I know those of you who play multiplayer, you're like, oh, well, it's laggy and server-based games and buggy, and we're not going to get to play multiplayer. It's too slow. But ultimately, you just download a client to your PC. Ultimately, the file sits on your PC, and it's just like the file sitting on your console, and multiplayer is going to work the same way. They don't care. Microsoft's going to have a world where they sell you a subscription, and they don't care what device you play on, and they don't care as long as you have a screen and an internet connection. So I'm pretty optimistic about this. I don't think Phil's lying. I think Phil is saying, in the scheme of overall Microsoft, it's not that big, but 15% is big. I mean, Microsoft's at one point was $1 trillion company. So that's basically saying Game Pass is worth 15% of the total. And that's right. I mean, it's a very, very valuable piece of their business. Do I expect that, Game Pass will be the dominant source of revenue for Xbox? Yes. I think Xbox is going away. I don't think that they will discontinue it. I think there may be another Xbox version after this one, another PlayStation version, but those are going to be for the aficionado who has to have, all the latest and greatest. The dumbed down version of games that runs only at 4K and 240 frames a second will be the server-based, cloud game. And the games that run at 8K or 16K when we have those monitors and runs at thousands of frames per second. I'm exaggerating for a fact. There will be people who have to have an Xbox because that's how they want to play their games, and Microsoft will keep making that hardware because there is a use case for that. But I think that each successive generation of consoles is smaller than the one prior, because it's going to be really aimed at just the super hardcore aficionado as opposed to the masses. So, yes, I think Phil is fibbing, and I think that Game Pass will be the dominant source of revenue. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. Again, wishing you a very, very happy Festivus, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, anything else that you might choose to celebrate. If you don't celebrate, hope you just have a peaceful end of the year and a happy new year. We will see you next time.